What is up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what the news is saying about Tesla stock, not to mention some new developments on the news for tomorrow, as we have big data coming out. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Weeble link. If you deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed 12 free stocks. If you deposit $500 or more, you're guaranteed 20. And deposit $2,000 or more, you're guaranteed 40. The offer ends very soon, in just about 2 weeks from now. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So, looking at Tesla so far, we have a very, very nice looking structure. Many people may notice the cup and handle that is forming. However, we want to see Tesla break this resistance up here, very close to that 360 area, to really see a big push and a breakout closer to the 370s, if not around 375 or so. Now, we haven't really done that yet, so Tesla's not ready to explode yet, but there is potential for it, and there's a very, very good chance it could get that move later on. So the question remains, what levels should we be watching for Tesla, and what is the news saying about it? I'm going to talk about the news and data first before I break more details down about the charts for Tesla and SPY and the others. So there is this news right over here about how Tesla has released a holiday update. This is actually very cool. I was looking through this. What they're basically doing is every single year, Tesla has these very, very nice, bigger software updates towards the end of the year, and they tend to be very, very fun. So one cool thing that they're doing is they now have an Apple Watch integration. The Apple Watch integration is going to be very, very cool because it gives Tesla users a lot more abilities to look at how the Teslas are doing, look at different features and things just like that. The first thing is that they have a nice looking dash cam that can be seen, and then there are going to be new Sentry mode features as a result of that. On top of that, they could also allow them to do all kinds of things with Tesla, such as start the heaters at least beforehand and do different things like that. And there could also be a lot of shifts that happen at least with that. Besides that, I was looking at the new watch updates. It allows for very, very cool things such as looking at how much battery is left in the Tesla, looking at the destination, and then also looking at like different times to make it in particular ways, and then plan out different trips. So very, very cool stuff in my personal opinion. I also saw some other updates, at least for the Cybertruck. There's going to be more rear camera feed that's going to be larger, not to mention the ability to play games in the backseat. So very, very cool stuff, at least for the Christmas holiday. And I think it's very, important that Tesla does this for their users. It gives them a lot more, a lot more hype. It makes things a lot better for them as well. On top of this, there's been some more talk about the Cybertruck. Tesla is decreasing the lease prices for them. And that's some interesting news right now because what's happening is they're decreasing the base price for the Cybertruck for leasing by about 10% or more. That's actually very, very awesome in my opinion. If you look at the all-wheel drive, now it's going to be $899 for 36 months at about $7,500 down. And they're doing this once again to incentivize a lot more sales. There are also headlines coming out about how Tesla is decreasing the prices for their Model Ys and some Model 3s in China, offering 0% APRs because it's going to help push sales for the end of the year. So Tesla's really trying to get those sales up, trying to improve things a lot for the end of the year. And let's hope they have a very, very strong report that's coming out for deliveries. Now, on top of this, looking at the data, UBS has given Tesla a sell rating, saying that Tesla is very, very overvalued. You could argue that based off fundamentals, but you can't also forget about the fact that Tesla's pricing in a lot of things, such as the robotaxi and factors like that. So it could go both ways despite that. The price price ratio is going up because Tesla's building some strength right now. And historically, Tuesdays are one of the most green days of the week. They're green 51% of the time, at least on Tuesdays. We tend to see more volatility at 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And besides that, there's nothing else that's coming out that's too significant for the data. Volume is at about 76 million. That is a little bit low, but it's a big improvement compared to before. Now, for the broader markets, just know this, guys. As far as we are going right now, as you guys can see, the majority of stocks are currently in either the green or the red. But you guys can see that most of them are kind of flat. If anything, the majority of stocks are flat. If you look at Apple, Nvda, Google, Microsoft, the majority of big tech were in the green, but some of these finance-related stocks, such as Berkshire Hathaway, not to mention JP Morgan, are a bit in the red. So very mixed markets, but most stocks were a little bit more flat despite that. Now, for tomorrow, it's going to be Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024. Please remember that at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 30 minutes after the market opens, we have the JOLTS job openings and job quits report. That could cause some more volatility, so get ready for that just to be safe. And we'll see how that ends up going. Besides that, that's the main time to watch for volatility. We'll see if that leads to a pump or dump in the markets. For earnings, we have a couple of banks before market open tomorrow, not to mention Salesforce and a few more. And then we have a bunch of retail like Chewy, Foot Locker, and Dollar Tree on Wednesday, followed by Dollar General, TD Bank, and more retail for Thursday. That's it for market news. Just know two more things. As far as the market sentiment is going, greed is making up the majority of sentiment. Momentum for the S&P 500 is currently at extreme greed as we're breaking all-time highs. And then the puts and call option ratio on the 5-day average is going down. It's on a downtrend because of the fact that we are seeing puts essentially being closed at a higher rate and more calls being bought, which is helping things push even more. And then finally, volatility is once again continuing to fall. The reason why the VIX is dipping like this is because the market remains bullish. There's not really a shift so far. With that being said, what do I see for the charts? What do I think is going to happen for the market, at least moving forward? In my opinion, I think that Tesla's looking more bullish. We have a nice cup and handle like structure that looks very nice. However, that's the bigger trend. And on the smaller trend, you guys can see right here, Tesla is range bound. So today, every time we hit this support at 350, we're getting bought back up. But when we hit resistance very close to about 358 to 360, we turn a little bit more bearish. We get rejected. So we're just doing a back and forth thing right now, going back and forth between supply and demand. That is all Tesla's doing until we get that breakout. We want to see it break 360, start pushing for 375 or so. And if we lose 350, look for 345. That's our 50 EMA and also this gap fill area, not to mention 335 below that. So what do I think Tesla's going to do for tomorrow? Here's my prediction. What I would say is this. It seems like we love to pop upon these opens. Like if you look at our open back on Wednesday, we popped and then dipped. Friday, we popped a bit and then continued. Even like on Tuesday, we popped and dipped. So we have this very interesting trend where Tesla likes to kind of gap up or even pop in the mornings. So look for a push tomorrow morning for that 357 area. And we need to get back above 360. Otherwise, it's going to push up there, then come back down, just continue to consolidate as time goes on. I find that to be the most likely possibility. We push up for that resistance around 358 to 360, then we could be looking for a move back down to the mid 350s for some sideways price action. Now, I will turn super bullish if we manage to break the resistance and we see the cup and handle pan out, but we're not ready yet because every time we hit 360, we have been rejecting. So it doesn't look like Tesla's ready until we get some kind of catalyst. So as of right now, the most likely move is that we just continue this trend where we just trade within this range. So just keep that in mind, guys. That's what I'm essentially seeing, at least thus far. As far as other tickers such as SPY goes, just know that SPY is looking more bullish. If we manage to break 604, we're looking for a push for 605. Then 607 is going to be our next potential target. If we end up losing 602.5, however, we're looking for a dip back down to 600. Overall, SPY remains more bullish as it's making higher highs and higher lows. We're doing a good job, at least so far. Now, I do want to mention that there is a tough resistance around 602. So it is possible we get a small dip tomorrow morning to retest, this 602.5 area, which is where the breakout happened to be, before we continue to push higher. And overall, the chart remains more bullish. Now, whether or not we get a bounce or a breakout all depends on this jobs report coming out at 10 a.m. So don't forget about that, guys. There might be some high volatility at that time, so watch for that very closely. But overall, SPY remains more bullish. Just make sure you watch the 602.5 areas remain support and 604 is resistance. Whichever way we break may cause a bigger move. But then I do want to make it clear that even if we do get some kind of dip to 602.5, we should get bought back up and continue to uptrend for now. ES is also remaining bullish because there's a higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. If we end up losing 6,050, look for 6,040 at our 20 EMA. As long as we're above that, as long as we hover above our 20 EMA, we remain bullish. We're going to continue to uptrend. If we lose 6,040, though, we're looking for a move back down for about 6,015. So we'll have to see how it goes. However, let me just make it clear we're bullish. Every time we hit our 20 EMA, we bounce, 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 and bounce. So this will likely continue to uptrend. It could be a small dip to about 6,050 before it continues to push for 6,080. And overall, SPY looks bullish. So does ES. There's no sign of rejection, and the market remains bullish. For those who are interested in the QQQ, it also looks very strong, but I do have one concern about it. So the issue with the QQQ is this. We hit 516 essentially. Every time we hit that historically, we did get a big rejection. So there could be a little bit of a dip coming because of that. but the trend remains bullish despite that. So what I mean is what you could do with the QQQ is essentially look at these levels very, very closely. We could zip down. So if we don't hold above 516, it's possible we retest 512.5 or below before we try to get that bounce in a breakout. So just keep that in mind. I think there's a very, very good chance of that potentially happening. Look at 516. If we break that, we're looking for 517.5, then eventually we'll get closer to 520. If we don't hold above 516 initially, this could be dipping for 512.5. The issue is the last time we had 516, we did get this rejection. We did end up tipping a little bit before we tried to bounce. So just keep that in mind. It's going to be a tough resistance at 516. We were expecting this to push higher. It does look bullish on the daily. So it would be very healthy if we get a little bit of a dip first before it continues to break out. And I think that's the most likely case. So the chart is bullish. We're making higher highs and higher lows. Every time we dip, we just get bought back up. We might see a small dip to 512.5 or so, which is where the breakout happens to be, before we continue to break out and start pushing higher. That's going to be the most likely case, a dip and then a bounce. And overall, the QQQ remains more bullish. I want to make that very clear. Same thing with NQ. We have tough resistance at 21,250. If we break that, we're looking for essentially 21,250 then 21,300. If we reject, we're looking for a move back down to about 21,150. I presume there might be a small dip coming to about 21,180, if not below that. It's possible we do see a little liquidity grab, but then we could continue to uptrend after that because the trend remains bullish and there's no sign of this rejecting. So I presume what's going to likely happen is we get a small dip before we continue to push, but then we might be attempting to revisit the all-time highs for the 21,300 area. Might be a dip and a bounce is the most likely case, but overall the chart remains bullish. For Nvda, we're range bound right now. We're looking for support at 138, not to mention 136 flat. But overall, we're just range bound. So we've been stuck between 136 and 140 for the last 2.5 days. I think we just remain range bound. Might be a small dip upon open to that 137.5 area. That would be completely healthy. There's nothing wrong with it essentially doing that. But then there could be a big bounce, a big break coming after that. That would be a lot more healthy, at least for the share price. So just keep in mind, there could be a dip coming to about that 137.5 area on Nvidia before it tries to get bought back up. As long as we see the buyers come back for 138, so if we dip below it and get bought back up, this has the potential to push for 140 then 142. So keep that in mind, guys. There is most definitely some upside potential for the chart. So I do see that at least for Nvidia. Also, there's other tickers that have similar trends. If you look at Bitcoin, for example, there is an issue, and that's the fact that there's a possible head and shoulders like structure that's developing here. And there's a little bit of weakness, which makes me think that this might be dipping to about 94,500 or so. So there could be a small dip coming to Bitcoin. That would be completely normal, would not be anything out of the ordinary if that were to end up happening. But then once that happens, there should be a nice bounce coming afterwards. So just keep that in mind. So I'm not necessarily worried. I'm not really scared about any sort of dip like this because Bitcoin is very healthy. It's just continually getting bought back up. So even if that ends up being the case, I would not worry too much. Just know that Bitcoin is still very bullish and has the potential to break out towards the end of the year. So this could be another buying opportunity that's coming to Bitcoin, at least for, if you're trying to trade it or do something like that. Just keep that in mind, guys. That's what I'm essentially seeing thus far. Might be a dip to 94,400 before it tries to bounce. For others out there, we also happen to have Apple. Apple is very bullish, but the problem with Apple is the fact that there is a tough resistance at that 240 area. So you want to be careful up there. The last time we hit that, or at least the last time we hit around 238, we did see this thing dip a little bit. So we'll have to see how it goes. But I think that this might dip a little bit back down for the 238s before it tries to bounce higher. Let's see if we can break 240 not, as it's going to be a tough resistance. Look for a dip tomorrow morning for about the 238s. Then it could bounce. If it manages to break past 240, we're looking for this thing to break out even higher, all the way up for 242 plus. So keep that in mind, guys, for a dip and then a bounce as the most likely cases, and the upside potential is still there. For other factors out there, I'm going to go over the rest of these and try to be a little bit quicker because time is very limited. Netflix is doing a good job at holding up. It does look bullish, but notice that once we hit this 900 to 905 area, we hit this and we form a triple top in the 900s. So I presume that it's going to be a tough resistance. We could push higher for 900 to 905. I do expect that to happen on Netflix, but then we'll see what happens once we hit that resistance. We'll see if we get a rejection or not. But nonetheless, we still look bullish. For MSTR, this is not looking that great. The problem I'm now seeing is the fact that we're making lower highs, and we didn't do a good job at holding above 392. We need to get back above 392 to hit 400 and 420. Otherwise, there's going to be a risk of this coming back down to fill the gap towards the 360 area. So I think that's the most likely case right now. We don't hold 380. We actually dipped towards the 360s. We'll see if we get a bounce from there or not. For Celsius right now is in a very interesting trend. We essentially have kind of like a double bottom that formed, but now we're just trading within a range. The problem is we pushed to 30, we were not able to hold above, then we dipped back down. So look for a test of 28.45 tomorrow, a small dip. We'll see if we get a bounce or not. If not, this is going to be at risk of coming back down towards 27.75. We'll see if we get a bounce off that or not. But overall, look for a small dip for anything else. On the other hand, Supermicro looks more bullish after bullish news came out. As long as we do not lose the 40 area, as long as 40 holds, this is favoring that it wants to continue to uptrend back up for 45.25, then eventually around 48.5. So I think we look bullish on Supermicro. I think we could continue to uptrend for 48. I think we're doing a great job to hit 45 and 48 as our targets. And we look really nice on Supermicro in terms of our trend. So it's very, very bullish thus far. Palantir is also looking very bullish as we're on a very, very strong uptrend. However, we're going to be looking for the support at 65.75. We may touch that, then we'll have to see if we get a bounce or not. Look for a little bit of a dip here, and then we'll see if this tries to rebound. Give this some time to develop. Overall, it's doing a very, very good job. I do want to say we're range bound. We need to break past 68 to start breaking out for 70 plus. There could be a bullish wedge forming here. So if I were to draw this out like this, you guys could see that might be a little bit of a wedge forming just like this if we get that bounce. And then if we end up breaking the structure here, this would be very, very bullish. That could lead to more upside. So we'll see if we get the breakout above 68. It does look a little bit more bullish in terms of the trend. Might dip to 65.75 and then continue to push. But if we get the breakout above 68, we're looking for this 70 target. So I see potential in a setup for Palantir just like that. For Rivian, we have a very tough resistance around 12.5, and we did call that out as we got that rejection. It might attempt to retest the low 12s only to reject and start dipping back down to 11.5. So keep that in mind, guys. SoFi is going to be testing 15.87. We need to bounce off this to push back up to 16.5. If not, this is going to be at risk of coming back down to about 15.5 to 15.3. I presume we might be dipping to 15.5 before it tries to bounce, so just keep that in mind. There might be a small dip coming. The IWM Russell 2000 has a range between 240 and 244. I think we're going to likely just be range bound like this, so we might just continue to trade sideways, and we'll have to see what kind of move we make. But the most likely case is that we just remain range bound for now. Might be a small push tomorrow morning for that 244 target and a bit of a dip. And we'll see how it goes from there. Don't forget, guys, once again, we have the jobs numbers at 10 a.m., so we'll have to see what that leads to, at least for the markets. That's the reason why I'm being a little bit more ambiguous. As far as AMD goes, we look a little bit more bullish if we break this resistance. I'm going to be looking for a target of about 144. If we don't hold 142.5, we're looking for a support at 140, very close to our 50 EMA. So overall, this looks more bullish, and we're looking for essentially 144 as our target. Might dip and bounce for 144 and give this some time. For ARM, we have resistance around 140. If that breaks, we're looking for essentially a target back up to 144. And if this rejects here, we're looking for support back down towards 137. So I think ARM looks more bullish after this very, very nice looking green bar that formed. As long as we hold above 140, we're looking for a much larger breakout, and this has potential to push even higher. For Coinbase, we're range bound right now. We're stuck between 315 and about like 297, going back and forth and back and forth. I presume that's most likely what's going to happen. Might be a dip to 297. We'll see if we get a bounce off that, but look for a small dip tomorrow for 297. For Amazon, I do see a concern. There's some tough resistance at 212. We weren't able to hold above that. So we could dip to 210. We'll have to see if we bounce off that. Otherwise, we could be looking for essentially 208. So I do think we might dip a little bit on Amazon before it tries to bounce again. So it might be a dip for about 208 or so, the 208, before it tries to rebound back up for 212. So it might be a small dip on Amazon, looking at this little divergence right over here and a little bit of a dip before we see anything else. For Meta, we're on a very, very nice uptrend, but there is one issue. We have to see this breakout being retested. I think we might be on our way up for about 595, then eventually 600. We might dip first back down to 590 before it tries to bounce for 595, then eventually 600. Watch and see how things end up moving. If we end up dipping for basically 590, we'll have to see if we bounce and start pushing for 595 later on. We have a very, very nice green bar, so a little bit of a dip would be completely healthy to grab liquidity around the 590 area before it starts pushing up for 595 and then eventually the 600 area from there. For Microsoft, Microsoft is making higher highs and higher lows. Just like Meta, there could be a small dip coming back down for essentially 429 to 428 in that range. Might be a small dip here before it tries to bounce and break out. I think we will eventually hit the 433 area. So there might be a dip to about 429 before it tries to bounce. So give it some time to develop. For Google, we might retest 172.5, if not 171 in that range. Look for a small dip to the lower 172 before it tries to break out and bounce. So I think that 175 could be a nice potential target. But there might be a small dip coming before it tries to rebound, so give this some more time to develop. For GameStop, we're on a bit of a downtrend right over here. We have to see if we can reclaim 28 or not. I think we might be dipping closer to about that 26.5 area, and we'll see if we get a bounce. But I do see a little bit more downside for GME. AMC is also in a very, very nice uptrend. We have the support to watch for around this 4.89 area. Unfortunately, it's very choppy up here, so I don't really expect too much. DJT may attempt to push for about that 35 target. It looks a little bit more bullish. However, it's not that massive of a move, so be careful once we hit that resistance. The VIX remains bearish. There's no sign of a bounce yet. We're also not at major support yet. We need to get closer to 13 to get there. So as of right now, the VIX remains bearish. The 10-year is kind of flat here. It's approaching its 200 EMA, which is why we're seeing somewhat of a move here, but it's very flat nonetheless. And the same thing can be said about the dollar index. This might be dipping for about 106 before it tries to bounce. So I'm not really seeing much going on with the charts. With that being said, guys, I just want to make it very clear Tesla remains very strong. There's a nice cup and handle like structure. If we break 360, I will be expecting a much bigger push. But for now, we haven't really gotten that. So we're just waiting to see how this ends up developing. I am very optimistic for Tesla. I think that this will attempt to break out later. But for tomorrow specifically, look for a push upon open for that 358-ish area. A little bit of a dip afterwards, and some sideways price action is the most likely case. We're waiting to see if we can break past 360 to turn bullish. There is potential for that to happen this week, but we're just waiting to see if that ends up being the case. Anyways, that's it for my video. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys very soon in my next one tomorrow before market open. Thank you for listening, and peace out.